All right, we are back here on the Crash Report with Joseph Ruud, a.k.a. Erick Rowan. What's going on, my man?
Oh, not much, man. Hanging in there like the rest of the world, you know?
I was expecting you to wear a metal T-shirt today, and you did not disappoint with the Cannibal Corpse shirt.
Oh, yeah.
So now you're going under the name Erick Redbeard. I would imagine, while it's probably not the most ideal situation to have to change your name, it probably hasn't caused too much confusion or lack of awareness due to your appearance. Yeah,
That is true. It's a pretty easy transition Eric Redbeard is take on. I have a lot of Viking ancestors through my life, so. Like Eric the Red, I was banished from a major, company, a major place, and off to make a name for himself in a mighty world way beyond what that company is.
Well, what have you been doing during the pandemic and since your release from WWE?
Enjoying a lot of time with family. We used to travel, 200 days a year, maybe even more, doing live shows outside of just the stuff you see on television. So to have just a break from that felt so great, especially after I got released. I went and filmed a movie, so I was gone for almost 5 weeks from my family. And to come back from that and just be able to be home and kind of just make my own schedule as to whatever appears has been great, just for my own psyche at home with the family. Obviously, now it's going on a little bit longer than everyone likes, and you want to get out there and do things. And, there's really not a whole lot of time for that. Fortunately, with all this time, you can prepare yourself for what comes next.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't mean to speculate here, but it does kind of feel like we're on the home stretch of this pandemic in a way.
Knock on wood. We hope, right?
Yeah, the movie, it's Ghost of the Ozark, correct?
Yes.
How did that all come about? I mean, obviously I would assume with, wrestling and the more so the performance aspect of it, obviously, I guess that's kind of dipping your toes into acting. But how did all that come about?
It's actually really funny. I actually went out and talked about doing headshots, getting an agent, probably like maybe about 3 or 4 months before I got my release. It just kind of fell into place. I was actually already looking into it. I was taking acting classes, just trying to broaden, things for the future. And the day after my release, I got a call from David Arquette, of all people, who is one of the producers and one of the stars in the movie. And I guess he had me in mind for this role since the beginning, but with WWE, being very hard to deal with traditionally, trying to get people to do things outside of that company, he didn't want to waste the time. But when he found out I was free, he jumped at the chance. And he's always wanted to help people when he can. So,
and this is the day after your release that he called you.
The day after my release.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
It was great to get bad news with good news. Plus, doing this movie got me into the SAG union, which has helped me get many auditions afterward too, and helping me get my foot through the door, doing something besides wrestling during this, crazy pandemic.
When does the movie come out?
I know it's in post-production. I think they're, I follow up with their Instagram every now and then. HCT Media kind of posts the status of what's going on with that film. I think they're in the stage of working on the compositions and getting that all ready. So I know sometime early, mid 2021.
Is this like a theatrical release, or is this going to be like go straight to a streaming service?
I know they had plans for some sort of festivals and stuff, but with the world the way it is, I guess we'll see whether that's in-person festivals or non-in-person festivals.
What's your role in the film, as much as you can say?
I can't really say too much about it, except for it's not the typical thing you're used to seeing me as. It's not the Erick Rowan character at all. You'll see many different sides to me, and I think that's what intrigued me most about playing this role, because it's something that's outside of my comfort zone, and I have to dig deep within myself to portray this character. And I'm very proud of what I accomplished, but it was very, very awesome to be around very talented people that were in the movie too.
So David Arquette had you in mind for this role. I mean, I assumed you still had to audition and everything, though.
I had to talk with the directors, Jordan Long and Matt Glass, and get them all on board as well. So, but I think it just all worked out. And
it's got to be, I'm sure it has to, what's the word? I guess it'd have to be very nerve-wracking, I'm sure, going from, being a wrestler, going from the ring to the camera in an acting sense, had to be quite a departure from what you were used to.
It's a departure, but and pressure. But again, everyone around me was so talented. It made it really easy to get lost in what I was doing, and it made me oddly comfortable doing what I was doing. I guess I prepared myself a lot for it, but even, with wrestling, you prepare and nothing prepares you until you're on set. So the fact that I got to learn, I guess, from a lot of very talented people, helped. Again, wrestling is, my first love, and I'm always going to want to go back to it. I actually went and wrestled in LA for Dave Marquez's UWN promotion. They do a weekly pay-per-view, and I worked old coworker Fred Rouser used to wrestle as Darren Young, and it was like I had never left. First match in 8 months, and it felt like I had never left. But I just like to be on camera and just doing whatever is asked of me, and that's always been what I've brought it myself in. Is with WWE, it could be the most ridiculous day at work where I'm carrying a cage, or actually having a couple pages of dialogue to have to perform live for a crowd. Like, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I try to do it to the best of my ability, and I don't think fans often realize how stressful working in an environment like that is. Especially when you're not always able to get feedback. With a movie, you can bring certain different things and get feedback whether or not they like it. You can get it, how about I try it this way, and stuff like that. When you're doing it in front of a live crowd and you get one shot and Vince is usually calling the shots, you don't have the opportunity always, because Vince isn't always there to try to change things, and you have to do it one way, and sometimes it's an audience of one over there, and it's less of a collaboration. So it's it's completely different worlds, but it was strangely familiar.
Well, I would imagine the biggest similarity between wrestling and acting and film would, a lot of it I would think, is probably feeding off. In film, you're feeding off the other actors. In wrestling, you're feeding off the fans when we're not in a pandemic, or the other wrestlers or things like that.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. The two differences, like going out, like let's say I'm out in the middle of the ring with The Rock at WrestleMania, 100,000+ people, cheering. You hear that, you feel that energy, and it gives you a certain kind of high, a certain kind of accomplishment, But then on the flip side, I did this movie, and there was a very emotional scene that I had to get lost in, and when I finished the scene, I couldn't get out of it, and I still felt all these emotions. And when I finished and everything was done, and I finished all my takes, and I was emotionally drained, and everything goes on to film, that same level of accomplishment and that high you feel being in a ring with 100,000 people, I felt that. So to me, that being in a room with like 3 or 4 people, or being with 100,000 people, I got that same feeling. And that's when I realized I don't need to wrestle to feel that. Like, I found something to have that feeling, that sense of accomplishment within myself.
Well, and that's great, because I feel like oftentimes, sometimes people go through their entire life, maybe not even finding, one thing that they, where they feel like a natural high. And, the fact that you found, two things is absolutely amazing. But let's go back to the beginning of everything. So you didn't get into wrestling that much until you were in high school, right?
Yeah. Well, my parents, they got the toys. I remember having the rubber, like toys, and like the birthday cake when I was like really little, like with the licorice ropes. Like, I remember that, but I don't remember just like watching it, being excited about it. I think my parents had like a party at my uncle's house where they got like the closed circuit WrestleMania, but all of us kids were just playing in the backyard. We didn't care. So it wasn't until like, senior year of high school, college, I started like watching, like the pay-per-views that they would have every month, and we'd have like little parties at, my friend's house, and we'd all, gather around and watch the next pay-per-view. And, it was a very exciting time, because that was like 2000, 2001. So it was like really cool to see that kind of stuff. And I think I was playing football at the time in college, and I got a respiratory virus and kind of down on myself. And I got, overweight. And I just was feeling really, really down. And I think wrestling kind of gave me an escape of something to do. We had went to an indie show, and it was Eddie Sharkey was putting it on with Terry Fox. And I remember watching the show and thinking, I think I can do something like that. I remember specifically Jerry Lynn being on the show, and he just had won the WWF light, cruiserweight championship the night before. So he was just finishing up obligations. So I was like seeing all these guys, and I'm like, I think I could do this. And so, much to my mother's chagrin, I quit college to pursue professional wrestling. And that started in 2002-ish.
Well, I guess I could imagine parents being frustrated that you would quit school, but, were they at least, mildly supportive when you decided, like, you know what, I think I want to try wrestling as an actual career?
I made a deal with her that I would try some community college while I did it. So, I got a job, so you got to support yourself. I worked at a gentleman's club.
What were you doing? Were you a bouncer?
I'm sure my mother was very proud of me doing that too. I don't know.
Were you a bouncer there, or?
I was a bouncer doorman.
Oh, okay.
I worked there on and off for like 5 years. Paid the bills. That's all I got to say.
Sure.
But I tried doing a semester of community college while training to be a professional wrestler, while working at the gentleman's club, while trying to fix my diet and lifestyle, because I'd gained so much weight. It was, when you have like a respiratory virus or something wrong with you, you start to get depressed. And I basically took this love for wrestling and kind of churned it into, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to take no, and I'm going to keep going. Obviously, it takes a while. With anything, it takes time to. Well, yeah,
because it was almost 10 years until you got into. I guess at the time it was FCW, but it was 8-10 years, something like that, right?
Oh yeah, and there were dips and reasons why things didn't work out, and that I wouldn't change, because But I changed my body. I had my first match, and I was hooked. Dropped out of community college, just worked and did matches. And I was kind of in the same spot. Not really improving. You think you are, but you get to a certain point where you work the same guys every weekend, and you're not going to get any better. I was in Minnesota, Wisconsin. That's not too many guys to be working. And if you're there for 3-4 years, you're not going to get any better. You're going to get stuck in your ways. You need to expand. You need to work as many people as possible to get better. And that's not something I learned until a little bit later. But in 2006, I decided to actually spend some money outside of the initial, training to be a wrestler. And I went with Dinty Moore out of Wisconsin, who's I think is with ROH now, Beer City Bruiser. And I went down to Harley Race's camp in Eldon, Missouri, to pay money for a week-long training camp. And out of that training camp, I was signed to go to Noah for a 3-month, basically dojo stay. So I went and lived in Japan for 3 months and got to learn those ways, do a couple tours when I was out there. When I came back to the States, Harley had wanted me to, move out to Missouri, which, in retrospect would have been the best decision to get me on the road the quickest with WWE, or to continue working with Japan. But unfortunately, I had a son, and I can't say unfortunately, but the timing at the time wasn't the best.
Sure. No, that's completely understandable.
And I say the unfortunate part because his biological mother did something horrible and had locked him in a car and went to go steal drugs from a hospital.
Oh my God.
So she was out of the picture, and now I was a single father. And
so you're trying to make it as a wrestler and make a career out of this, and you're raising a kid all by yourself.
Yes. So then, you try to make it work, and, you're stuck back in Minnesota because you're not able to travel every week. You've got to get a regular job. So you're working to, support my son. And for the longest time, because that was 2007, I did the Japan thing, and 2008, 2009, 2010, I basically was just raising my son and just trying to have a life and wrestle on the weekends for fun. And I did a reality show in Norway in 2010, just off a whim. It was a local radio station was saying there was if you have Norwegian blood in you and you've never been to Norway and you want to meet your family, come for this Amazing Race style TV show. So I auditioned and got the part in the show. And, 3 months I lived out in Norway filming the series, which was aired on their major network out there, TV Norge. And when I on that show, my gimmick was basically myself, and I was a wrestler supporting my child. So when I came back from that, things just started to fall in place, where I saw FCW at the time was basically what NXT is now. It was the developmental for the WWE. And I had taken another chance, just like I did on the show. And I signed up for that. And next thing I know, I had a week-long tryout, and I was flown out to Florida, and I had a place to live, and that's how I got signed to the WWE.
So you submitted yourself, essentially. They didn't come to you. You came to them.
I submitted myself. I think I had done extra work before. I'll never forget it. It was like 2008. They had come to Minnesota. It's the last time I had ever talked to them. And I had a match on the fly with the kid. And I remember specifically Barry Darso's kid was there too. And he got signed out of that. And I remember specifically because Barry Darso, this kid was pointed at and said, "Okay, you're going to get in the ring with Dolph. You guys can talk about it. Go. Here you go. He'll talk to you." And then I got put in the ring with somebody else who I found out later had never trained to wrestle.
Oh, wow.
And wow. I remember locking up with him and like saying, "Give me a couple," and boom, boom, watch the tackle. And he said to me, "What?" And I knew I was in trouble. And instead of eating him up, I think Arn just gave him in the ring and said, "Get out." And I was like, "Oh shit, I ruined my chance."
And when was this?
This was 2008.
Oh, okay. So all right.
Yeah, years before. And I remember afterward, Johnny Laurinaitis comes. He's like, "Yeah, we like your look, but I was bald at the time." And he's like, "I think you should grow your hair." So I think for the next half a year, I grew my hair out. I looked like Fozzie Bear. It like had like a little thinning spot way up here. It just looked ridiculous. And I shaved it, and I just said, you know what? They don't want me. They don't want me.
Was there ever a time before you ended up getting in, maybe when you had to completely take care of your kid or, something like that, but was there ever any moment where you were like fuck this, I don't know if I should even be doing this, I got to focus on other things, where you basically were considering giving up on wrestling altogether?
I think I always liked it enough where I was fine just doing it on the weekends. Like, I just had fun.
Do you think if you didn't make it to the WWE, would you still be wrestling on the weekends if you never made it pro?
Maybe. I don't know. The funny thing is, even when I was on the road or with WWE with the developmental, I think it was 3 months before me, Brody, and Wyndham got called up to the road as the Wyatt family. I had said to my wife at the time, I said, because we had done a WrestleMania and had to take out an AMSCOT loan because they were paying you $750 a week to support a family of 3, including you have to pay your own place and car and transport. And I remember they had a lot of us go to WrestleMania 29 for access, which is basically we'd wrestle matches like at the signings and stuff before WrestleMania. And I remember having to take out an AMSCOT loan. And that was the first time I had to take out a loan just to kind of live paycheck to paycheck while working for WWE. And that, to me, that just seemed ridiculous. And I'd already been down there for a couple of years, 2011 to about 2012. I'd already had one ACL surgery, which sidelined me for 6 months. So I basically said, if I don't get signed within 3 months, I'm going to have to quit. I can't afford it. Yeah. I'm going to have to go back and get a job because it just ain't going to work out. I didn't tell anybody that except for at home at the time. And within 2 months, we were on the road. So to me, things just happen when they happen, and you got to go with it.
Well, and I think, a lot of people are probably under the perception that it's like, oh, this guy made it pro. He's in the WWE. Now he's going to be, he's filthy rich. He's loaded. And it just doesn't, it does not seem like the case. And $750 a week, in theory, I mean, what is that, $3,000 a month? It sounds okay, but a family of 3, and at the time, I mean, how old were you? You would have been 30 years old or something?
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, that's just 30 years old making $750 a week is just not an ideal situation for anyone, let alone someone with a family of 3.
Yeah. Also, I don't like to hold ill will toward anybody, but during this pandemic, I joke around, because a lot of guys have just signed big contracts, like the Good Brothers, and I like to joke around, especially with guys like that, because they said that they were let go during a pandemic, and the fact that they're signing people right now, but signing them to way less deals. I like to think like the Good Brothers contracts, probably paid for another 20 people to come on board.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's just, it's crazy. And I'm not even a huge wrestling guy, so I'm not like an expert or anything, but I kind of actually started getting into it when the pandemic hit. I was into it when I was a kid, and then I kind of got out of it, whatever. But I kind of got into it right before the pandemic hit, and I started watching the matches when there was like nobody there, and I was like, maybe it's just because I am not like a diehard or something, but they became. I I don't know, it just was not nearly as interesting. I kind of compare it to I went to a drive-in concert. I've talked about it on the show before, but I went to a drive-in show and just, it was cool, but the vibe just wasn't there. It felt like, I don't even know. It was just not, it wasn't very entertaining,
I tend to agree with that.
But I think AEW, they have people actually in the crowd now, I think, right?
Yeah, I saw that. And, the funny thing with wrestling is it caters to all different people. And it always has. So it's what sucks about, let's say, a Raw that's 3 hours is somebody that sits through a 3-hour show. They're only going to like, some of the audience is only going to like an hour to 45 minutes of that show because it's not tailored to every single person.
Yeah.
They're trying to get different people from different audiences. And the same goes for AEW. Like I'll try to watch some stuff on there and I get turned away from it because I particularly am not a fan of certain things. But then when other things come on, I'll turn it on and I'll watch it, or I'll go back and I'll watch, like certain matches. But trying to keep everybody's attention, in this day and age, it's so hard. Especially like, a lot of these TV shows, you know what you're getting into. You know what you're getting into if you watch like an Evil Dead, like the movie, or if you watch like what's the CSI shows. You know what you're getting into, and it's hard to get ratings when you turn it on. It's basically just a smorgasbord. It's just you hope when you turn it on, it's something you like. Otherwise, you're going to turn the channel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like, I'm not one of those people that, I know some guys where it's like, have you seen, and you can name any show, and they're like, oh, I've seen the whole thing. But I think the last show that I watched that like fully captivated me from beginning to end, I think there's like 3 seasons out, but was Ozark on Netflix. That was like, I feel like the last show where, at least 90% of it I was very interested in. But, most shows, yeah, they don't, there's always weak spots in them.
Yeah, I heard about the show called The League that was out for 7 seasons, a comedy about fantasy football, and I heard it was comparable to Workaholics. So I decided to give it a watch, and now I'm on season 7. It's almost over, and I'm very disappointed. It sucks when you find a good show and
it's over. Yeah.
The season's end.
Well, real quick, I guess, how did you feel about WrestleMania this year, with the pandemic and the way that things were done with the Boneyard match and the Firefly Funhouse and things like that?
I'm glad they used my image residual. For what it was, like, I went back and I saw the Undertaker's match. I mean, it was cool. It was like watching a little movie. You know? They spent money on the Metallica song, I see.
Oh, yeah. No kidding.
Good for them. I'm glad they did that. But as far as like the Bray Wyatt's match with Cena, I think that just wasn't my cup of tea. That just kind of, it just too much. Too much money.
I agree. It was very like comic booky and over the top, silly.
Like I know they try to say wrestling is fake, but I think that kind of just throws it in people's faces, and I think that's part of the reason why people can't take wrestling seriously. Is like you watch wrestling for the stories, and you think these guys are going to hurt each other. You don't think these guys genuinely dislike each other.
Yeah.
Like to me, that's what wrestling is. You have to have 2 people with a genuine dislike for each other that captivate you and make you want to watch them tear each other's heads off. And you either like one of them or you like the other, but you have overwhelming feelings for one or the other. And for the most part, and I say the most part, that's lacking today.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like I said, I'm not a huge wrestling guy, but I when I do watch it, I'm always, I guess I get more attracted to WWE because of the names, and that it's more familiar to me. But when I watch AEW, even though I don't exactly know everyone that's in the ring, it does. I don't know. It seems much more interesting to me. And it seems a little bit more not realistic, but it just seems more real, I guess, than some of the WWE stuff I see today. But back, when you were in the Wyatt family, did you ever feel overshadowed by Bray's character and all of that?
So yeah, me and Brody like to talk a lot about this, who is Luke Harper with WWE.
Yeah.
How we always wished we were a little bit more than minions and had a little bit more character as far as not just the background, because that's the way it was usually churned in to be, is we were in the background. We were the big follies for whenever he would have a feud. The person he was feuding with would have to get past the two of us in a wrestling competition or in other ways. And we never got a chance to kind of explain why are we following him? Like, who are these people?
You guys were just kind of there.
They would have explored that, because within wrestling, you can have that mystery, but I think they tried to hold on to the mystery a little bit too long.
Yeah.
And then they just said, okay, well, we don't need to explain it.
So the backstory was never provided.
We never had that. Obviously, in my head, I had all these ideas. And that's all you have at that time, is just time to think about who this character is and where he's from. And then when they take you from one gimmick and throw you another without explaining it, you're like, okay, how would I explain this in my head? So then I tried to connect all the dots as to what I was doing, which I found out later was very good for trying to learn how to build a character within acting.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I was always constantly in my head trying to think about, if I get the chance to explain it, how do I want to present it? And I think I had to wait. We got on the road early 2012, 2013, and it wasn't until 2019 where I got a tiny chance to start talking and explaining myself. That's a long time to wait to speak.
That is a very long time.
And it might have been a little bit too long to have, because most fans would have just tuned in and not known that history. And that's what kind of sucks with wrestling. Like, the diehards might get it, but then the casual fans, they're still trying to understand what you're trying to put together.
Well, and then you had the cage thing with the spider, and I don't want to dwell on that too much, because I know you talk about it frequently. But I saw when I was researching for this, you had an idea. Rather than the mechanical spider, you had the idea for Ma Petite from American Horror Story to be in the cage. And, when I heard that, I was just like, oh my God, this is so much more, interesting, than a spider. And when you went and pitched that idea, because it is the idea, I guess, in theory, sounds very over the top. But were you uneasy, like, pitching that idea? Like, I don't know, they might think I'm a little fucking crazy for bringing this up.
Actually, I was professional about it, and I wrote it all down. I was sure to explain that I was locking her in the cage, not because I'm a guy who's trying to, lock up a woman in a cage, but because she's voluntarily being locked in, because I know how terrible the world is, because of how bad I've been treated throughout the years within WWE. And I went on to explain to him that, with the Bludgeon Brothers, I was slapped in the face repeatedly by an older abusive brother. With Daniel Bryan, I was repeatedly upstaged and never got a chance to speak. And then I went back to the cult. I said I was brainwashed, and constantly ridiculed, and was the joke of the family, kind of like Bubba Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw movies, was always just kind of berated by his brother and his family. And I said, I know how horrible the world is. I'm protecting her from it. So we would have this special relationship. And even in the thing, I said, you only need her for one day. We would film 2 or 3 weeks of television backstage after the reveal on live television, which we would build a slightly larger cage to fit her comfortably. But the fans wouldn't know, because it would just be slightly larger. And I remember being very excited about the pitch. because it was the only thing in my head that would have captivated the audience at that moment and made them care. And then I was very excited because in wrestling, there's never a final, there's never a finality. And because the wrestlers always have to come back.
Yeah.
So I wanted something horrible to happen to her. Off camera, you don't need to see it. And then you would give me a chance to actually act like I lost something.
Yeah, and act upon the rage that you feel inside.
Then, yes. So the reason that I was quiet, and now I can have this character development and go either way, either be a babyface or a heel, but I would have purpose for whatever I do next.
Well, when you pitch this idea, I mean, who do you pitch the idea to?
So at the time, Heyman was the head of creative for Raw. So you pitch it to him, and then he tells you he's talking to Vince about it.
What's his initial reaction when you pitch this? I mean, is he even remotely on board with the idea, or is he
he loved it?
So is Vince the one that put a stop to it and said no way?
See, I can't say it was him because Vince was only around during that time, maybe once every like 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay,
so my pitch had to go directly to Heyman instead of Vince, which, another thing that it kind of sucked because I'd love to say it was Vince is the one that tore it down. I would love to say Heyman just never gave it to him, but I don't know the facts, and I know who I gave it to. And, people can say in hindsight, this would have been great. But when you're there and you actually pitch it and you do it to the right people and there's genuine excitement about it, and then you're told what it is, it's very defeating.
Yeah, sure.
And then you start to wonder, well, did the writers even know about this pitch outside of like the 3 people you talked to? Because there's like a whole bunch of writers. And then did any of those people like try to even fight for it? Like, because if he was there every week, I would have fought for it.
Well, and it's just it's so much more of an interesting concept, and I think you had another idea of putting things in the cage. I think whoever you were going to be in the ring with that week, whatever their worst fear was, like Pennywise from It, and both of those concepts are just. I just think there's so much that could have been done with them, and they could have gone in so many different directions. It's beyond me why that was never put in motion.
Yeah, the Pennywise pitch was funny because that one was kind of like me backpedaling when they said, okay, it is the, like the tarantula. And it was me basically saying, okay, well, how can I save this?
Yeah, and make it more interesting than it is.
And there's nothing better than saving it by, turning what the fans think it is to something completely different.
Well, and then when you get released from the WWE, was it? Was it like a crushing blow, or was it almost not a sense of relief? But because obviously, that is a huge life-changing moment. But did you feel like maybe now you have more freedom to do things, or was it more bittersweet type of thing, or how did that go?
It's funny because like to me, like I was a lifer. Like I would have done anything for that company. I worked before COVID. Obviously, I worked sick. I worked hurt. I've had 4 surgeries for that company. I did everything. I came to work, with like a torn shoulder, like still putting on matches. I tore my my tendon in my elbow. And I came in and I wrestled a 20-minute match 2 days later, like to give up the belts. So to me, I would have done anything. Yes, I wanted to get out and do other things, and was hoping that I could do things on my days off, but that's not too realistic with WWE and their crazy schedule. But I think the initial shock was kind of just disappointment as to, you give and give and give, but you not really appreciate it for it. Like, that's kind of like the thought process. And I get everyone's released or whatever. And, on that list, there were a few surprises and there were a few that just weren't being used. And it sucks because you were always used. You know what I mean? And you thought you were doing the best, job you could. But at the end of the day, would I have ever had the guts to leave? And I think that's what I tell myself. And I look at myself and I say, no, I don't think I would have had the guts to leave. There's times like with the cage, I was unhappy, but I did my job and I never tried to show my unhappiness at work because I knew things get bad, but things get better. And to me, them kicking me out the door basically said to me, okay, well, what do I want to do? And luckily I got that call and kind of was told, okay, I know what I want to do. How do I get there? And now it's just that journey of getting there. And I'm not a stranger to it. It's something I'm used to. And if I want to wrestle, there's plenty of opportunities to wrestle other places. And I take them when I can because I like to wrestle. But as far as that creativity and that stuff that I'm lacking, like right now, like in WWE, I never had this creativity and never got to use it. With acting, you get to use it. And the only one to blame for yourself is you. I think some of the funnest times I've had since being released are just doing auditions because I'm acting. I may not get the roles, but I'm doing this acting in getting this practice and getting these reps. Nobody sees it except for these casting directors who need to take a chance on somebody, and it's just doing stuff like that right now. And to me, it's rewarding and no one sees it, but to me, it's rewarding.
Do you have any other films coming up or anything that obviously I'm sure you can't say anything, but is there anything else coming up besides Ghosts of the Ozark?
I may or may not have filmed a couple things, but I can't talk about them right now.
Well, I guess we'll wait and see. Well, now that Brody is in AEW and I'm sure your no compete clause with the WWE is up, has that ever been I'm sure there's been thought, but has there ever been like an actual discussion about maybe trying to do something or no?
I think I've made it pretty clear in other interviews that, as much fun as AEW would be, the whole reason me and Brody kept putting back together is because people always saw us as a unit. And now that he's doing so well on his own, why would I want to go and try to squish and try to compete for that?
Almost step on his toes in a way.
Let him do what he does. In the future, would it be nice to go to AEW for a 1 or 2 month run and have a massive feud where maybe somebody loses a beard? Yes, that would be great. You know how awesome it would be to get booked in a role where I have to shave my beard and then go and make some money with my friend in a competitive feud, trying to lose a beard? That would be great, and fans would dig it up. Because when's the last time you saw a hair versus beard match? Or you haven't seen that since I think Kurt Angle's last one I seen. He's been bald ever since.
Yeah. Well, one last thing before we wrap it up. Was there anything in the WWE, like one thing specifically that you felt that you really wanted to accomplish, but you didn't get the chance to? I mean, you've had such a great career, and I mean, obviously doing WrestleMania with The Rock, even though it was only 6 seconds or whatever. But I mean, you've done so many great things. But was there one thing in particular that you wish you could have had the opportunity to do?
Yes, I wanted a singles win in a championship match. It doesn't have to be the Universal Championship, Heavyweight Championship. It could have been the Intercontinental. It could have been the U.S. Championship. Or it could have been the last pitch I had 2 weeks before I got let go. I pitched, and I'm telling you this, I wrote this down. I have proof of it. I sent it to a writer. I pitched the fact that the spider had died. It was my last ditch effort after they refused everything. Have me just completely shut down. Go to TV every week. And when I finally do, people come up and say, what's wrong? Just start beating the crap out of this random people until a person of authority, who they finally got an authority figure, I guess, says, you can't do this. This is wrestling. If you touch one more person, you're going to get, fired or whatever. And this is before I got fired, obviously. Maybe I shouldn't have used that word for him. But my pitch was the next week I would go and I would beat the crap out of like whoever had I think it was Riddick Moss at the time. He had the 24/7 championship. I would beat the crap out of him. But then behind me would come a ref, and I just put my foot on him, 1, 2, 3. And then as the guy came up to me, what are you doing? I would just hold the belt up, and you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I can do this every week, kind of thing. Leave, and for every week, I would just keep doing it until the guy like had no choice, but a babyface would come and try to compete against me. They would keep losing until they challenged me to a fight that has rules for the 24/7 title. And then the babyface would win, and then that would at least continue some sort of story and development with me.
And what was their thoughts when you pitched that to them?
Well, I'll never forget it because I saved the email. They said they had big plans for Riddick Moss.
That's it? That's all they said?
And then a week later, I think Gronkowski won it.
Oh, so it sounds like you just couldn't even catch a break. Everything you presented was shot down.
I think that stuff where you're pitching things and trying to be interesting within yourself and stuff just not sticking, kind of just in retro site kind of just says, okay, well, they didn't really want you there to begin with because they didn't want to have you succeed in any kind of way. Which to me is mind-boggling because, I don't look like every other human. I'm 6'8", 340 pounds. Like I'm definitely not, somebody you see just walking down the street. So the fact that they have nothing for me was quite silly.
Yeah, I mean that is a bummer because I think you have a legion of fans. I'm sure everybody would have loved to see where things could have went.
Oh yeah, but the future is the future, and the past is the past until they merge again.
Joseph, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Make sure you check out Ghost of the Ozark, hopefully coming out some point in 2021, and we will be right back on the Crash Report. Hang on.
We'll see you next time on the Crash Report. While you wait, make sure to like and subscribe to the show, damn it. Thanks for listening.